Have you ever noticed how sometimes the more you hear something, maybe something a bit odd, the more it starts to just feel true? Even if, deep down part of you saying, hang on, that can't be right. What's really going on inside our heads when that happens? And maybe more importantly, is there anything we can actually do about it? Today, we are plunging into, a really fascinating phenomenon called the illusion of truth effect. And then we'll look at how a conversational method called street epistemology might offer some surprising ways to push back against it.
Yeah, this deep dive is really all about getting to grips with a fundamental vulnerability, you could say, in how we think. And the goal is to give you some practical insights, things you can use immediately, whether that's managing your own information diet or just having better conversations. We'll explore why sheer repetition is such a powerful shaper of belief, even when the facts are thin on the ground. And crucially, how we can maybe cultivate a bit more openness to revising what we believe.
Okay, let's get into it then. This illusion of truth effect. What is it at its core?
At its core, it's a remarkably robust finding in psychology. It's simply that repeating a statement, just hearing it more often, significantly increases how accurate people think it is. And what's really striking, quite amazing actually, is that this happens even when the statement is, demonstrably false. Even when the listener intellectually knows it's probably not true, it bypasses conscious persuasion. It's a subconscious thing.
Wow. That's pretty wild. And this isn't just some new idea they cooked up recently, is it? It has a history.
You're right about that. It goes back a fair way. The phenomenon was first properly demonstrated in a really important study back in 1977 by Hasher, Goldstein, and Topino, I believe. They just used simple trivia statements and found that even hearing one just once could boost how true people rated it later.
Just once. Huh. And I assume it didn't just stay locked away in psych labs.
Oh, not at all. Throughout the 80s and 90s, you saw lots of replications, researchers showing it worked across all sorts of different areas, things like advertising slogans, political catchphrases, even testimony in courtrooms.
Okay.
Then, maybe between, say, 2005 and 2015, these cognitive fluency models started to get formalized. Scientists used neuroimaging, brain scans, and they linked this ease of processing information, this fluency, to, reduced effort in the cortex. It suggested that people subconsciously mistake how easy something is to process for how true it is.
Which feels incredibly relevant right now, doesn't it?
It really does. Since about 2016, you've seen just a flood of work connecting this effect to everything we're dealing with now. Fake news, climate denial arguments, deep fakes, things going viral on social media.
Yeah.
These online ecosystems, with the constant resharing, the repetition across different platforms, they seem almost designed to amplify this effect. They just multiply that perceived accuracy.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. How does our brain actually fall for this? Why does hearing something over and over trick us?
Well, it seems to work through a few key cognitive and even neural mechanisms. First up is something called processing fluency.
Okay.
Basically, our brains are wired for efficiency, right? The more we encounter something, the easier it gets to process it, both perceptually and conceptually. It just flows better. And we tend to misattribute that subjective feeling of ease for objective validity. It just feels right because it's easy to think about.
Ah, okay. So easy equals true in a way.
Kind of, yeah. And tied directly into that is the familiarity heuristic. That fluency, that ease, it gets quickly recoded by the brain as familiarity. And things that feel familiar tend to trigger this ring of truth. It's a shortcut. If it's familiar, it feels true.
Another shortcut.
Then there are source monitoring errors. This one's a bit sneaky. With each time you hear a claim, your memory for the content of the claim gets stronger. Makes sense. But your memory for where you heard it, the source, that often decays much, much faster.
Oh, right. I can see that happening.
Yeah. And as that source memory fades, it gets harder to be skeptical because you might forget if it came from a reliable news source or just, some random comment online.
Okay.
And finally, there are the neural correlates. fMRI studies, brain scans actually show us what's happening. When people hear repeated statements, there's less engagement in the part of the brain we use for analytical scrutiny, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
Less thinking, basically.
And at the same time, there's increased activation in an area linked to valuation and gut feelings, the ventromedial prefrontal area. So the pattern is consistent with making quick heuristic judgments rather than engaging in deep analytical thought.
So it really is less about careful thinking and more about a quick feeling. a gut reaction.
That seems to be a very good way to describe it. It's an efficient shortcut the brain takes, which unfortunately can be pretty easily exploited.
So are there limits? I mean, does just repeating something endlessly always make it seem truer?
Yeah.
Or are there factors that can, dampen this effect or maybe even reverse it?
That's a really good question. And yes, there are definitely boundary conditions and moderators, things that influence how strong it is. For instance, repetition frequency and spacing. The effect does grow, but it tends to grow logarithmically. It usually levels off after about, say, 25 exposures.
25.
After that, it can plateau. Or sometimes it might even reverse if people just get bored or experience something called semantic satiation, where the words almost lose their meaning from overuse.
Right. I think I've felt that.
Yeah. Then there's knowledge and expertise. Now, knowing a lot about a topic does dampen the effect, but interestingly, it doesn't eliminate it. Even experts show the same basic curve, it's just shifted downward a bit. So being an expert doesn't grant you full immunity.
Huh. That's surprising.
It is. Now, motivation for accuracy, this is a big one. If you're explicitly told to focus on accuracy, or if you're already doing some kind of analytical task, the effect drops sharply.
So being mindful helps.
It does, but conversely, if you're distracted or under high cognitive load, maybe you're multitasking. Stress your reliance on that easy fluency increases, making you more susceptible.
Okay, that makes sense.
And one last thing. Social proof and multi-source repetition. Hearing the same claim, but from different voices or across different platforms like we see all the time on social media, that really multiplies its apparent credibility. It creates this powerful but often illusory sense of consensus.
This really raises some serious questions then. What are the big real-world implications here? It sounds like it could be incredibly powerful.
Oh, it is. The illusion of truth effect really underlies a lot of pervasive phenomena in society. Think about propaganda, obviously. Brand advertising relies heavily on it. The way conspiracy theories catch on and spread virally. Even well-intentioned public health messaging can sometimes inadvertently strengthen misinformation through repetition if not handled carefully. And recent surveys looking at things like deepfakes show that people who rely heavily on social media for news show an amplified illusory truth effect. It raises really urgent questions for information literacy education.
You brought up climate denial earlier. Could you give us a specific example of how this might play out there?
Sure. So in environmental communication research, studies have actually shown that even audiences who are quite scientifically literate, when they were repeatedly exposed to common climate denial statements, they rated those statements as more plausible over time.
Even the science literate ones.
Even them. It really proves that just presenting the facts, just debunking while important, is often not enough on its own to counteract the sheer power of repetition.
Okay, so this all feels a bit daunting. If our brains are kind of wired this way, how do we fight back? How can we become more resilient? Subscribing is the only way to keep the cows from learning TikTok dances? Oh my God.
The stakes have been raised.
I know, it's like we have to save the world.
Yeah, we have to protect the internet.
From dancing cows. This is where street epistemology comes in, I gather.
That's right. Street epistemology, or SE as it's often called, is a conversational approach. It's about inviting people to really examine why they hold a particular belief, and also how confident they should reasonably be in that belief. The core aim is to foster what's called doxastic openness.
Doxastic openness.
Yeah, it's basically a fancy term for a genuine willingness to revise your beliefs when the evidence warrants it.
That sounds like an incredibly valuable skill, especially now.
Yeah.
So how does SE specifically connect to this illusion of truth effect we've been talking about?
Well, it offers several really powerful points of connection, ways to kind of counteract the bias. First, since repetition breeds that feeling of conviction, SE encourages you to gently probe the other person's exposure history. You might ask things like, about how many times have you come across that idea? And where did you mostly hear it?
Making the repetition itself visible.
Precisely. Second, because that ease of processing, that fluency, feels like truth, SE practitioners often introduce deliberate disfluency. They might ask for really precise definitions of terms or ask for the claim to be restated, but in completely different words. That disrupts the automatic, easy flow.
Okay, slowing things down.
Then remember how source memory decays faster than the memory for the content?
Yeah.
So SE encourages active source retrieval, asking questions like, Who first shared that with you? How reliable do you generally find that source?
To get back to the origin.
Right. And finally, remember how being motivated for accuracy reduces the effect.
Yes, that was a key one.
So SE suggests maybe starting a conversation by explicitly framing it around accuracy. You could say something like, hey, would you be willing to help me understand how accurate this claim is, rather than just how familiar or comfortable it feels?
That's interesting. Are there other specific practical techniques people could try to use themselves, maybe in their own conversations or even just thinking things through?
Oh, definitely. SE practitioners have a toolkit. One is called exposure mapping. Early on, you might try to maybe even visually map out the chain of exposures, saying, okay, I saw it on this site, then this person shared it, then I heard it here. Seeing those multiple identical messages from different channels really helps surface that potential illusory consensus.
Making the pattern obvious.
Yeah. Then there are counterfluency interventions. Beyond just asking for rephrasing, you could maybe gently present a plausible-sounding but false counterstatement just once, and then explore the person's confidence level about that statement. It can illustrate how even a single exposure can start to sway our impressions.
A live demonstration almost.
In a way. Another is accuracy salience. This means inserting prompts that remind everyone involved that the goal is figuring out what's true, rather than, say, defending a group identity. You might ask something like, okay, just for a moment, on a scale where it just sounds right and 10 is, I've seen solid evidence, where would we put this claim right now?
Shifting the focus.
Right. Then there's source triangulation. This is about modeling the practice of actively looking for independent corroboration for a claim, not just finding more repetitions of the same thing from the same echo chamber.
Checking different unrelated sources.
Yes. And finally, something called space debiasing. After you've had an initial chat and reflection, you might suggest revisiting the topic a few days later. That spacing, that delay, helps counter that initial fluency spike from the first conversation and encourages more sustained analytical thinking.
It sounds like a thoughtful approach.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, this isn't about manipulating people or winning arguments, right? It sounds like there are important ethical boundaries here. Your journey to deeper understanding starts here. NavigatingBeliefs.com. Sign up. It's free.
So it's not just learning, it's an adventure.
Yeah, like a quest for knowledge.
That is an absolutely crucial point. Because the illusion of truth effect can be misused, recognized even, it's vital that SE facilitators are really stringent about not using unscrupulous repetition themselves. The whole ethos of SE has to remain voluntary, question-based, and genuinely aimed at shared truth-seeking. It should never be about trying to persuade someone using covert fluency tricks.
That's really important to emphasize. Wow, this has truly been a deep dive into how our minds can sometimes lead us astray. Is there more research happening in this area? Where might this go next?
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty more to explore. Future research is looking into some fascinating questions, like, can engaging in regular SE dialogues actually help immunize people against repetition-based misinformation over time, almost like building up cognitive resistance?
Interesting. A sort of mental vaccine.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And exploring hybrid interventions, combining SE perhaps with strategies from inoculation theory, like pre-bunking, giving people weakened versions of misinformation beforehand to build resistance.
Pre-bunking, okay.
Yeah, seeing if combining those approaches creates even stronger resistance. There's even some somewhat futuristic talk of neuro-SE, maybe using portable EEG devices.
Wow.
To see if asking these kinds of SE questions actually helps reactivate those analytical brain networks that we know can counter the quick, fluency-driven shortcuts.
Fascinating stuff. So if there's maybe one big takeaway from our deep dive today, it sounds like it's that our brains have this tendency, this shortcut, to equate how easy something feels to process with how accurate it is.
That's a great summary.
But by understanding this, by becoming aware of this cognitive shortcut, and maybe by adopting some of these deliberate strategies, like the ones from Street Epistemology, we can learn to slow down, to actually question that feeling of familiarity, to foreground the reasons behind a belief, and hopefully move towards beliefs that are more responsive to actual evidence.
Well put. It's really about building both our individual doxastic openness, the willingness to revise, and also building our collective resilience against this constant storm of information and sometimes misinformation that we all face every single day.
We have definitely covered a lot today about this illusion of truth effect and how something like street epistemology offers tools to navigate it. So now we really want to turn it over to you. How might you notice this illusion of truth effect playing out, maybe in your own newsfeed or conversations you have? What small questions could you maybe start asking yourself, or perhaps asking others gently, to challenge that automatic ring of truth that just comes from hearing something repeatedly? And maybe, after listening to this deep dive, which sources are you thinking you might need to triangulate a bit more carefully? We would genuinely love to know what you think. Until next time.